So, welcome back to the Postkahanism podcast. This is Baruch. I'm here with Doctor Itzhak Eshel, who I will give a chance to introduce himself in a second. But he has been doing incredible archaeological research and presenting the results of his archaeological research on Bar Kokhba rebellion on Uri Milstein's show. He's got 20-something episodes up now. I don't know, by next week he'll have a bunch more, I'm sure. But they're all in Hebrew. So we're going to discuss a lot of the stuff that he's discussed there today. We'll go over a lot of the same ground in English. So Dr. Eshel, Itzhak, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Good evening to everybody, wherever you are. I'm a son of the kibbutz in the south, one of the very important kibbutzim in the 48 wars that stopped the Egyptian from going to Tel Aviv, kibbutz Nekba. And I was educated myself in University of Tel Aviv for the first and second and third degree, PhD. I also taught a little bit in Tel Aviv University, in Oxford, and I studied in Harvard for some time, and then in Ben-Gurion University in the Negev, in Beersheba. And I excavated and surveyed a number of sites by myself and with other. Like I worked for 10 years in Lachish under the auspices of University of Tel Aviv and directed by Professor David Yosishkin. In the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, last century. And I did a lot of work in Timna, in the mine area of Timna, the copper mine in the south of Israel, not far away from Eilat, excavated there. And I did some surveyed in all the South Negev and a few other works that I did. I published my main publication, because I didn't have much time to publish other things that are on my table, was Dam Kathleen Canyon's excavation in Jerusalem, where she excavated from 1961, I think, until the war in 1967. And after she died, I met her before, and she bequeathed some of her finds to my PhD. And after she died, I was part of the team that took over the legacy of her work, and I was in charge of publication of about 1,500 complete pottery pots from two storage caves in the Ophel in Jerusalem. It was published by the British Academy in Oxford in 1994, I think, in Volume 4 of Jerusalem. So I wasn't very busy in publication because I wasn't involved very much in the academics, so it wasn't very attractive to me. And I didn't have the pressure to publish or perish. I didn't have it. So I did what I really wanted to do as far as research is concerned. In 2005, I was asked by the Department of Antiquities, the Israeli Antiquities Authorities, to advance the research and the publication of my private collection of antiquities, which was completely legal. And I would explain why it was legal, because eventually it turned out to be something very unusual. Anyway, it was legal, and they recognized the legalities of me holding it. In 2005, I started to work on this project, which eventually took me 20 years until this year, because it turned out to be the archive of the Bar Kokhba war that took place between 132 to 136 AD, and opened to us, to me and to others, the first time to understand a little bit about the wars that we heard about it very vaguely in the Talmud and in other Jewish documentation, but very vaguely, because they didn't write in history. They didn't refer to important part of this war. And the first time we actually knew something more detailed about what happened in the war, why it was open, who was the leader, all the families that involved with it, 850 names of men and women that take part of it, nearly 200 name of sites of places that were involved in it, and most important that they took over from Jerusalem from the hands of the 10 legion of the Roman that was there, and they controlled Jerusalem for all the war. And slightly after the merger of Shimon bar Kokhba, the Prince of Israel, and until the town was taken by a trick by the Roman, not by force, and they massacred there everybody, took prisoner, and this was a repetition of what they did in Beitar. Where Bar Kokhba or Shimon Nasi Israel, Shimon the Prince of Israel, stayed for the last year of the war, and eventually he was murdered by a Jew in the place and then after he was murdered there, the wise men, the
sages,
the parasite wise men, opened the gates, according to what we understand, and let the Roman come inside. They thought they are going to save themselves. The Roman didn't have any patience to deal with anybody, and they murdered and massacred everybody, including the last chicken in the town. And then from them, they went to Jerusalem. They sieged Jerusalem for up to 50 days, and eventually they entered the place through a tunnel that one of the Samaritans, according to their story, let them know about this tunnel. And they entered the town in Shabbat and surprised the defenders, and eventually murdered and took prisoner all of them. So this is the first time that we have some knowledge of what happened in the war. Apart from the facts, until then we knew that there was a war. We knew roughly the years of the wars, but they didn't have any details of why and how. For instance, Jerusalem, that was, as I said, controlled by Bar Kokhba, by Shimon, the Prince of Israel, for 4 years, because the war started there, is not mentioned at all in the Jewish documentation, in the Talmudim. The editors of the Talmudim had a negative attitude to Bar Kokhba, and especially to his success. And they denied, they censored anything that could be interpreted as his success in this war. And most of them, most important is the fact that he took Jerusalem as the first step of the war, and then controlled Jerusalem for 4 years. And it's not mentioned at all. We didn't know anything about it until we opened the archive that we did now. Now, this is the general framework of our work. When we started,
can I ask a question here?
Please.
So, you guys excavated the Bar Kokhba archive. There was one central repository of documents that you found, one central site.
Yes. We were given by people from the West Bank, Palestinian families that was cooperating with these Israeli, some of them with Israeli authorities, but with the security. But we had our family, my late father, had a friendly relation with the elder of this family, even before the 1948 war, before the War of Independence of Israel. In 1946, he was excavating the fields that was bought by the JNF, and prepared the fields for settlements of Jewish kibbutzim and moshavim. He did alone. He worked alone with a little D9 tractor and a plow, and he hit a nest of wasps, of what they call a oriental wasp, which is a very big wasp and very vicious. When they attack you as a in a big way. And he fainted, and the people of the shepherds of this family were there. They came across and they saved his life in a traditional medicine, like cooling him, etc. And since then, they have a very friendly relation until the 48 war. And then, of course, everything, they left in the war, they left their settlements, which was left in the Israeli side of the war. And they went to a place where they knew that there is a cave with gold. They knew it before. And if you want, I'll tell you a little bit about how they came across it in the first place. It's not very important. The fact is that they went there in the place which we now know was called the town of Kokhba, Ir Nachoshet, and they settled there, and they left. All the village moved to these ruins of Roman time, from the Roman time of the Bar Kokhba units, and lived there until 1967 without bothering what happened there as far as the antiquities is concerned. They were interested in the gold and in some of the complete utensils, house utensils like cooking pots and etc., containers, because they left their place, original place, with nothing. So they used these pots for themselves, and on some of them they wrote their names in different ways, and we realized later on the completely different ways that the people of Bar Kokhba wrote on these pots. But they lived there until 67, didn't bother with antiquities or with the coins or nothing. There was no market demand for this kind of thing at that time. And this is how it went until 1967, when the Israelis asked, when I was in the army at that time for the second or the third year of my army service at that time, 1967, there was a wave of demands by Israelis and by others for antiquities, especially Jewish antiquities. And everybody who could put a hand in caves with the finds like this cave started to sell it to the traders in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, and they did too. And they sold quite a lot of things. And after a few years, when they finished all the attracted the finds that they can sell, they were left with what they left. And then I came across them, and we realized that this is the families that saved my father about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So they came to the kibbutz and they met my father, and then he decided, the owner of the deposit decided that he is going to give me, or to sell me, whatever was left there, because he couldn't sell anything, because nobody was interested in the rest of what been left there. Probably he sold before that. He sold all the papyri, the other documentation on parchment, and the gold, of course, and gold utensils and silver utensils, and the rest of them, they were not. Nobody wanted to buy them, so they been left with them, and they passed it all to me, formally. So I was the owner of this repository since 1969-70. And according to the law of the country, it became my property. I reported, of course, all this to the Israeli Antiquities Authorities at the time. And since then, every new manager of the authority was reported by me until today. So, and they realized very soon that after 2005, they came across me, that I'm a legal owner of these things. Now, what we have in this repository is about 4,000 pieces of information inscribed on utensils, on pots, as well as as pieces of metal, mostly copper and other alloys related to copper. And each of these items was inscribed by special scribers with a message. Sometimes it's a big message, it's a long message, something important. Many times it's not that important. Paying salaries, move these people to here, send them there, prepare yourself to the war here, and we got a whole bunch of information, all mixed together, as well as with the coins that came to us, about 2,000 coins, and I have to start to sort it out because you don't know where to start. So I started to use my educational experience and to read them and to open them and to decipher them and to record them. Each of them was properly recorded as I opened them. Most of them were ruled as we can't see it. You have to open the item, and after you open it, while taking pictures of all the process, you have to clean it gently without disturbing the patina, if there was any patina. Mostly a little bit of dirt and mud, and then to take picture of the items as it's spread, and then only then to start to read it, what's written there, and to record it, to decipher it, and then to record it by copy, whatever is there written. And this was the first step. It took 10 years just to decipher the things, because you're talking about enormous amount of information. As I said, about 4,000 pieces of information. Just compare, if you want to compare it for the most important archives that was discovered in Holy Land, in Israel, and ancient Israel, which was the Qumran, the Dead Sea Scroll, which was the Qumran library of the Bnei Tzadok, of the priests from the Tzadokite Bnei Tzadok. This library contained 975 items, and we have 4,000. It's almost 4 times, or more than 4 times. So it's enormous amount of information. I worked on my own for some years, and then one of my neighbors, an accountant from Be'er Sheva by the name of Moshe Pereg, very successful businessman and accountant. He discovered an interest in my work and in the result, and joined me. And since then we work together. Eventually, other people joined us, and we created a research team. And now we have a research team. By now we reach more or less a complete picture that we conclude from the contents of the documentation. We sorted out the documents for categories by years or by subject. We have to sort them out according to year, because of most of them, they only mention the year of the war, not the months and not the day. So we have to understand what's going on. Eventually, we got a picture, I think, very interesting and very logical picture, and we decided about a year ago, or sometimes recently, to open it to the public. Until then, hardly anybody knew, even in Israel, that we have this archive in our hands, and which is the only proper archive from the ancient time, from the Roman time. And nobody knew exactly the contents of it, and we were not interested to open our information before we have an understanding of what's going on there. Because we know that if we start to make noise, we make a noise and tell everybody that we discovered this and we discovered that, nobody will let us work, because the information that came, the sum of information, apart from the fact that we have an archive, which is a sensation by itself, the information that came from this archive is so sensational and so exciting that nobody could sleep. People who hear about it nowadays says that they can't sleep for nights, thinking about the things that came out of this archive. And you have to remember that recently, 3 years ago, we announced the first time in 5 recorded messages in YouTube of one of my friends about the very fact that we have the archive and some examples of its contents. And about half a year ago, we started to serialize all the history of the war according to what we understand in the YouTube. And we are now in lecture. We did, the last one was 23rd. And tomorrow I was supposed to record the 24th. I postponed it for another week because I'm busy with other things in the research. And we are anticipating to reach something in the number of about 100 lectures, all in YouTube. So if any of you has some knowledge of Hebrew, or any of you wants to translate it with AI from Hebrew to other foreign language, you can do it. Although there are many discussions that I discuss during the presentation, so I don't know how it's going to be. But anyway, this is now on the air, and anybody is welcome to look at it, to see, and to ask questions. We have lots of discussion with people who watch it and want to know about it, about the language, about the letters, about the contents, why it's all written, described on metal pieces, but not on skin or parchment or papyri, which is a fact, but also a fact that they sold all this papyri and other organic material with writing on them before us. So when they reach us with the materials that nobody knew what to do with it, because when you look at it in the first time, most of the time you can't see the writing. You have to develop a special technique how to decipher that something is written, or a scribe or draw in the documents before you start even to understand what's going on. And nobody bothered to do it. Just for an example, Moshe Dayan, the Minister of Defense and the King of the West Bank at that time, after the 67 war, everybody offered him antiquities, and he went to this family, and they offered him this material. So he said, "I'm not interested. I don't know what it is. He's not interested." He took a few pottery pots, complete with the writing on them. This is oil. This is wine, etc. And this is what he took. He wasn't interested in the most important part, because nobody else was interested, because this is the first time that we have such an archive inscribed on metal or material on pieces of sheet of metal, which is not unusual, by the way, for the Roman at that time. But it was the first time in Israel that anything like this was discovered, and this, with other things, put it in a category that nobody really think that this is real.
So just a second, if I may.
Yes, please.
Because we only have about an hour left here. I want to.
I'll be happy to answer any question.
Yes, I want to discuss in general terms the flow of the war that's revealed by this archive. So that, some of my audience is familiar with Bar Kokhba, some are less familiar, but I don't think any of us are familiar to the degree that you are, obviously, because until now this information wasn't really available to the public, right? So before the war, The temple had been destroyed 2 generations before, but it seems like some sort of more or less normalcy had returned to the land of Israel, right? There were farming families that were here. There was a social structure here, right? There were families that were stronger, families that were weaker. There was commerce and so on and so forth. There were kind of aristocratic families, right? And so there was sort of normalcy. And in fact, there's an interesting story that I never connected to the Bar Kokhba rebellion, but the story is in the Talmud, and you connect it to the Bar Kokhba rebellion in a very fascinating way, which is that there was a famous convert to Judaism named Onkelos, or Aquila in Latin, who was of noble birth. And the Talmud says that he converted to Judaism and he sat here in the land of Israel, and his uncle, I believe, who was the emperor, sent a legion after him, and the legion all converted to Judaism. And so he sent another legion. He told them, like, don't talk to him, and they, somehow they screwed up too, and they also converted to Judaism. They stayed here. He sent the third legion, and he said, like, don't say anything to him, don't whatever. And then on his way out of, they came and got him out of the Beit Midrash. On the way out, he kissed the mezuzah scroll, and the guy that was in charge of the detachment sent to get him. I mean, the Talmud says a legion, but legions, with 10,000 guys. So whatever, he said, what are you doing? And then they started a conversation. These guys converted to. So
let me put it yes. This way that everybody understand. In our work, eventually, we involve all the available material, Jewish Talmud and other traditional Jewish sources, the Roman sources, as well as our archive, which is in our control. And we got a picture where I organize it in three phases, all this war. The phase number 1 led to the war from the times that Hadrian came onto the throne in the 11th of August 117 until the war started, according to our understanding, in the Tisha B'Av, which was translated in Tisha B'Av Tav Tzadik Bet, which is 15 of August 132. So this is the first stage led to the war, and where these names that you mentioned, Onkelos, which was Aquila, and converted to Judaism, was involved. This is not the war itself. This is all the events that led to the war. Phase number 2, yes.
So this story in the Gemara is based on the actual story of a legion of Roman soldiers who converted to Judaism. Now, I came into the middle of your discussion with Dr. Milstein on this, so I don't remember what the source for this was that you were using. I believe it was a Roman source, yes? There was a Roman source to the story?
I don't understand all your questions. If you ask slower a little bit and more stronger.
Sure. Yes, sure. So for the preamble for the audience, there was actually a Roman legion that converted to Judaism, which caused a huge scandal. And
you can't take one piece of information and think that everything is there. No, there was the story which we believe is true, that one legion, the legion 22 Deuteriana, came to Jerusalem, was sent to Jerusalem by the governor of the Roman governor in Caesarea, Tineius Rufus, in 129. He was sent to arrest Achilles, which was by then Onkelos, the converter, and he convinced them to convert to Judaism. All this legion, 3 battalions of the legion, came up one after the other to Jerusalem, according to the Talmud. And we think it's true because we have other items that come integrated with the same result. Eventually, what happened is that because of their conversion and because the wise men of Jerusalem failed to return them to the hands of Hadrianus or his governor to put them on trial and to kill them, the war started eventually. This was the basic reason why the war started, because they promised to return them, and they failed to deliver. And the Caesar, the Caesar, got so upset that he decided to exercise, to do what he threatened them to do 2 years before in 130 when he was in Judah, and to start to build his temples on the Harabait, on the Temple Mount. And this was the reason why Shimon Bar Kokhba, or Bar Ben Kuziva, son of the village Kuziva, was mobilized, encouraged by his supporters, religious supporters, the priest of the Bnei Tzadok, the priest, his neighbors in the village, to go and to take Jerusalem and eventually the Temple Mount, with the purpose of saving and risking and taking out the Ark of the Covenant, which was buried there since 622 before Christ, in the time of Josiah, the king of Josiah. This was recorded in the Bible. This was the reason why they went to the war. They didn't want to go to the war as a rebellion similar to the ones that happened 60 years before in the general rebellion. It wasn't a popular rebellion. It was a popular war at all. It wasn't people were not interested and weren't involved in this war by will. They were involved as bystanders. The war was initiated to save the Ark of the Covenant from his burial place under the temple in Jerusalem. This is why they have to take Jerusalem first. And it's well documented in about 100 or more than 100 documents in our archive. And then the Temple Mount, and then they took out the Ark of the Covenant and saving, because the priest, the high priest of the Bnei Tzadok, of the son of Tzadok, knew, or the only one who knew where was the opening for the underground tunnel where they buried or deposit the Ark of the Covenant in 622 before Christ. And they have the key to go into that. So they fear that if the Romans started to build their temples on the mount, they will have to clear all the tunnels and the cavities and the abandoned caves in the Temple Mount, and will come across by accident to this tunnel where the Ark of the Covenant was there. Only the Bnei Tzadok knew that. And this is why they encouraged the high priest of the Bnei Tzadok, Abraham ben Levi ben Tzadok, the neighbor of Shimon in the mutual town Ir Kuziva, the town of Kuziva. He encouraged him to organize and to go and to risk and to save and to save the Ark of the Covenant from falling by accident to the hands of the Romans. This is why the war started, with no other reason. It wasn't a revolt against the Roman. It wasn't a revolt for political reasons. It wasn't a war for territorial reason. It was only to save the Ark of the Covenant, which they succeed in the first 2 months of the war. The war started by taking over in one night of Jerusalem from the hands of the Roman 10th Legion. And then after Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot came the high priest from Ir Chuziva, and with him, under his control, they took out the Ark of the Covenant. It was well documented, and moved him, shipped him out of Jerusalem to save him in case the Roman come and have a counter occupation of Jerusalem. Eventually, the Romans didn't do anything for 400 days. The first 400 days, they were busy with other things, which if you're interested, I will tell you what. And they didn't do anything in Judea for first 400 days, which we call the the quite peaceful time when Shimon could organize all his army again and all the control of the state, of the economy of Judea. And then eventually after that,
sorry. I want to ask a question about this first period.
What happened to the Ark of the Covenant? All these three, the other 3 years. So the major theme of the whole war was to save and to keep and to secure the Ark of the Covenant, which many people didn't know what happened to it. Now we know. It's well documented in the archive. It documented how they move it from one place to another place, and always avoid to let the Roman by accident, because the Roman didn't know about it. Nobody knew that they saved the Ark of the Covenant apart from the people who were involved in it. But Rabbi Akiva, for instance, which we thought was the advisor of Shimon bar Kokhba, wasn't involved at all, because he didn't belong to the party of Bnei Tzadok. He belonged to the Perushite, which was their opponent. So the Perushite, Rabbi Akiva, and nobody else knew about the saving of the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, since the war, the first time that anybody, apart from the people who were really involved in it, the headquarters and the leaders of the war itself, we were the first one to realize that the whole war was a center about the saving the Ark of the Covenant. Just first time. We knew nothing about it. We didn't even imagine that this is a reason for the war. This was the reason of the war.
So, okay, I have questions about this first period of the war.
Please. Before
we get into what happened with the Ark of the Covenant and how the rest of the war went, I have questions about the initial stage of the war. So, this Roman legion that converted en masse, which they refused to return to
Triana.
They refused to. First of all, do we have non-Jewish sources for this story? Is this mentioned in non-Jewish sources?
Yes, we do, but without the name of the legion.
Where?
As you know, in the Talmud.
Not non-Jewish.
About them coming to Jerusalem.
But not Jewish sources. Do we have Roman sources for this?
No. The Roman sources is the imprint of what happened to this legion. What is the imprint? Because this legion deserted from the Roman army by deserted in Jerusalem from the out of control of the government and the Caesar, and converted to Judaism, the Hadrianus tried to catch them and to trial them and to put them on trial. And what happened is that he started to punish them without them being in his hands. He was in Caesarea and decided the first thing to do is to erase inscriptions that they left on the water aqueduct in Caesarea, memorized the fact that they participated in repairing this aqueduct up to 128. In other words, they were there by 128. They came from Egypt, and they were there in 128. In other words, they left Jerusalem, Caesarea, to go to arrest Onkelos, or in 129. By 130, the Hadrianus went through Judea, the provincia of Judea, stopped in Caesarea, realized that this unit deserted from the army and probably was converted to Judaism, decided to punish him. He started by punishing him by the memorial, what's the name? The
Damnatio Memoria?
Okay, the Damnatio Memoria. In other words, to erase his name, first of all, from the inscription in Caesarea, which he did, and eventually from the old documentation of the Roman. And this was part of the problem why nobody knew whether they have any inscription of this or documentation of this legion, and it was a mystery. And scholars, Israelis and other scholars, guess that he was eliminated in the war by Bar Kokhba. But now we know that he erases their inscription in 130, because this inscription was discovered in 1960, and eventually by the 1980s it was deciphered. But as a matter of fact, we were the first one to integrate the conclusion for what it was done, what he did to the inscription, into the story of the war, because this shows that he started to punish the legion by the Mensio Memoria, by erasing them from the inscription, eventually from all other documentation in the Roman documentation, and this shows that this legion didn't exist anymore after this act in 130. So this is what I said, the imprint of the story of the Talmud from the Roman side. The Roman showed the punishment of the legion. The Talmud gives the reason why it happened.
And then they demanded this legion return under threat of building a pagan temple on the Temple Mount. And the sages you mentioned, because they had no choice, they couldn't hand these people back. But on the other hand, they didn't want to face this punishment. There was also some sort of problem with the way that these guys got converted. It was kind of questionable mass conversion.
Okay, it was a quick conversion of 1,000 people. So that was not very acceptable.
So they invited them all to a feast and poisoned them.
Yes, this is why.
What is the source for this?
There's other legends that they were poisoned by the wise men, the Perushite wise men, the Chachamim in Jerusalem. And I said, after one of my teachers, Professor Mordechai Gichon, this probably has to do with the fact that they were not properly converted. So this helped them to eliminate, because as far as the wise men in Jerusalem, they didn't consider them Jews. They thought that they are not anyway.
What is the source? What is the source for the story of them being poisoned?
There is a source. The Roman source give the story. This is a legend. This is not. These are all legends. You have to understand. The question is whether you take this piece of information and start to do something with them, or you just ignore them. We didn't want to ignore anything. Anything acceptable, we didn't want to ignore.
But what is the source of the legend?
They made a very, very interesting story.
What's the source of this legend? Where does this appear in Roman sources?
There was an officer of the 10th Legion about 60 years later after the war that wrote it in his book. He was a officer and a writer, and he wrote his book. He said the wise men of Jerusalem poisoned a Roman unit in Jerusalem. He didn't say any more. He said in one version he said it that they happened in Jerusalem. In another version he said this happened in Emmaus, which is a town outside Jerusalem. But this is the story. Now it's not only the story, and because eventually this, as to understand, this led to the reaction by the Caesar to punish the Jews who didn't convert them according to agreements that they did with him in 130. In 130, he wants already to catch them. He went to Jerusalem, and there is a document that it was in Jerusalem in 130. He came from Caesarea after the legion to Jerusalem in order to catch them, and he threatened to build his temples on the Temple Mount. By then, in 130, but it was achieved agreement between him, non-documented agreement between him and Rabbi Yoshua ben Azar ben Hananiah, the wise men of the Jews, that they will turn the legionnaire to his hands, and he will give up the building of his temples on the on the Temple Mount instead of the Jewish temple that he promised to do. But the Jews, after he left to Egypt, and he came back to Rome, and then the governor of Judea reported to him that the Jews didn't turn out the legionnaires from as he promised, as they committed themselves. And on the reaction of that, he decided to order the building of his temples on the Temple Mount, and this was the reason for Bar Kokhba to go and to start the war to save the Ark of the Covenant from the incidents of discovery of this Ark of the Covenant by his builders. And they didn't know that there is an Ark of the Covenant. Nobody knew. Only the priest of Bnei Tzadok knew. But they knew that if the Roman continued to clear all the cavities and all the tunnels and the water holes in the mountain, in the Temple Mount, they will come across this tunnel as well, and they will come across the Ark of the Covenant. This is the end of it. This is why they sent Bar Kokhba to save the Ark of the Covenant. Why? And for all those people who were looking and trying to find the Ark of the Covenant either under the Temple Mount, started with the Crusaders, and eventually by the area of the Dead Sea near Qumran. This was futile, because we now know that Ark of the Covenant was saved from them, and we know where they took them along the 4 years of the war, and eventually we also know where they left it. It's documented where they left it a year after the war. We are not sure that they left it then and not in other place, but this is the documentation. The last documentation where it was deposited is in the archive.
So, okay. I have a couple of questions. So about the Ark of the Covenant, so we don't leave this thread hanging. Where did they leave it?
They left it in Judea somewhere, the place they prepared for it, and they fortified it. And as far as we understand, up till now, I wasn't there, but from the information that I got from my Palestinian cooperators, it was still untouched since then.
So you know where it is, or where it was?
We know where it is, but you should realize it's not only the Ark of the Covenant was documented to be there, but also the candelabra, the golden candelabra,
the menorah.
And so this is a very important piece of information. We keep very, very secured, and we don't talk about it. Definitely not about the place. Often, in general, it's in the south of Judea. That's it.
Very interesting.
Somewhere.
So, why did the high priest, right, Levi ben Sadok, why did he charge Shimon ben Koziba with this mission of organizing a rebellion and a resistance? What were this guy's qualifications?
Baruch, it wasn't a rebellion. It was a mission.
A special mission. A mission.
It was a raid.
Fine. A mission. Yes. What were his qualifications?
Commando raid. That's what.
Yes. And they created a whole underground. And they built a fairly large force underground. They armed him somehow. What were his qualifications? What was he before?
What? Who? Shimon?
Sure. Yes.
Shimon was a farmer. A colleague of mine just finished to write a book about his daughter, Malbat, a novel, a member of our team, that we let them write and use the material for their... and he was a farmer. And he was a farmer like anybody else, but he was a very brave one. He didn't fear the Roman. He didn't fight the Roman, but he put, he did an intifada. He was a little war, what's they call, guerrilla war, a little guerrilla war, not organized, povesham, here and there. And then when the high priest of the Bnei Tzadok, the Avraham ben Levi ben Tzadok, well documented in our archive, realized that the Romans are determined to go into to build their temples on the Temple Mount. He mobilized. He ordered him. He instructed him to go to war and to win the war with the help of God, like Gideon did. So
Bar Kokhba. So you're saying that even during this period, which was the Roman occupation after the destruction of the temple, okay, 2 generations afterwards, there were still guys living here conducting partisan warfare against the Romans, a little bit here and there. And this was Bar Kokhba's background.
Little guerrilla, we have it in the Talmud, all sort of incident like this, that they disturb a marriage couple and here and there. It wasn't organized. It was, a local incident.
Like Hilltop Youth.
The Roman.
It was like
occupation. It was occupied by the Roman, and there were clashes all the time. And Shimon in his village was known to be somebody who is not afraid to stand up. That's all. He wasn't an army. He wasn't a general. He was nothing. He was a brave farmer in the village. And when Avraham ben Tzadok considered what to do, he went to him, first of all, because he was his neighbor in the same village. And then second, he knew that this is a brave person, that he will try to do what is best. He wasn't sure that he will succeed. And Shimon himself wasn't sure that he will succeed. He said it. If I die, do this and this after I die. From the beginning, he wasn't sure that he is going to succeed. This was a suicidal mission.
At this point, he was in his 40s, Shimon? He was in his 40s, 50s?
Yes, between 40 and 45. In our assessment, because we know the name of his grandfather, we know the name of his father and mother, and all his 5 brothers, and we have, of course, we know I told you, we have 180 names. We have the names of his 2 wives, the first wife, who bear him 5 children, and the second wife, Samcha, daughter of Hillel ben Garis, who was his second of command. And we know, and the twins that they made two twins. We have so much information, personal information, genealogical information about families, endless, because this is you see what happened is this is not in historical writing. This was a writing from the reality.
Sure. It was all their correspondence.
Then that. Nobody sat there like Josephus Flavius to write a history. It wasn't organized in a history. It was just things that happened as they happened. And they document. This was the email of the time, if you like.
Yes. So you have all the correspondence. So Shimon launched a commando raid. He used his daughter Malbat to trick the Romans and pretend to be some sort of prostitute or something.
He was very clever. You see, sometimes Uri Milstein says he is an expert on the army. Sometimes there are commands of the army who has these abilities. And they can do things without being trained. He was one of these geniuses that knew how to do it, what to do. And he organized a raid on Jerusalem in such a way that he attacked the Romans completely surprised, like the Hamas in Shimam that did 2 years ago in the south of Israel, around Gaza, and why in 2 hours, and took the whole part of Israel. So he took something similar, complete surprise, took them by surprise by night with all sorts of little tricks, and by the morning they were eliminated. Those who were still alive ran away. And after them, all the other units of the 10 Legion ran away from Judea to Caesarea, to the governor, and left Judea empty from the Roman for 400 days.
And there was an episode during this time, which kind of was, you could say it was divine intervention, because there was a raiding party in the north of the Jordan River Valley. There were 3 statues of the Roman emperor, which were very special statues, right?
That's right.
And they were passing through, and they were there at an outpost. And these were very realistic, lifelike statues with religious connotations. And these guys raided this outpost without knowing the statues were there. The Romans that were stationed this outpost pushed out a party to try to save these statues and evacuate them to what is in modern-day Jordan, and apparently got ambushed. They buried the statues or something. They were only discovered recently. And the emperor, because of the religious significance of these statues, went a little bit crazy. And so his focus for the next 400 days was trying to recover these statues. He wasn't thinking about Jerusalem. He wasn't thinking about Bar Kokhba. This was a local rebellion. The main thing was these statues, which had some spiritual significance to him. And only after...
It upset him tremendously.
Yes. Only after, I guess, they gave up the search for the statues, which, can you imagine being the Roman officer that has to report to the emperor, like, hey, we can find... your statues, not a good position.
He has 3 legions in the north looking for these statues for a whole year, and they failed to find it because they buried the pieces of this thing. We only now in 1975, the first time that we ourselves, in archaeologists, realized that there are statues. Nobody knew where they buried them, the pieces. The garrison of this Roman fort, they were attacked by units that was illegally or unauthorized attacked them. This unit occupied first of all in advance of Jerusalem war. This unit was sent to make a diversion to the Roman legion in Jerusalem, to send some of their forces to help Engedi and Jericho. And the command of this unit succeeds so quickly, so he was tempted to do another one. So he went to Tel Shalem, 60 kilometers north of Jericho, and attacked this isolated Roman force. And in the fort was a small garrison, who was so surprised that they took the pieces. They took the 3 statues and took them into pieces. They didn't succeed to do anything. They just buried them into the ground, and nobody since then nobody knew that there were statues, apart from of course from the Caesar, from Hadrianus, who were looking for them. But
why were the statues even there?
We didn't know anything about it.
Why were the statues even there in this place in the middle of nowhere?
This has to do with what happened before the war. I told you, from 117 to 132. What happened is that the Caesar put his statues made out of stone or out of from copper, from bronze, anywhere he can. So in his way back from Egypt in 131 or 131, yes, 131. He passed through the area near Rabat Amon today, which is an area where there were places where they used to produce bronze and gold items. Started for instance, from the Temple of Solomon in the 10th century BC. So he ordered them to do these 2 statues because he wanted to put them in the headquarters that was built there for him in Tel Shalem. He left an order, and they did the statues and sent them to put them in the middle of this fort, and he was peace. He was happy, and then only when he came back in 1922, he came back not because of the statue, in my opinion. He came back because Jerusalem was taken and was defeated. All his army was defeated in Engedi, in Jericho, in Jerusalem, and in Tel Shalem. With unauthorized attack, he came to Judea, and only then he realized that the statues were also missing, because the governor was frightened to tell him. And as a matter of fact, you're a religious person, I'll tell you. In my opinion, once he realized that his 3 statues he thought they were occupied, they were taken as prisoners by the Jews. Eventually it went by Shimon, but he didn't know about Shimon person. And now he stopped the Jews. And he decided to punish the Jews because of that. And he did what they called Gzerot Adrianos. I don't know how you translate it in English.
The decrees of Hadrian.
Yes, which means that he said, because you took my statues and my father's statues, Trajanus, and my friend's statues, you took my soul, and I will crush you religiously. I will finish you religious. If you go into the Talmud and you go through this punishments that he did, he tried to eliminate the very existence of the Jewish faith. He will forbid everything. pray in the morning, laying talmid, everything. It's fantastic. It's what he was punishing the Jews because he thought that they took his statues, and then he mobilized a legion from Syria, and his own legions that he came, his bodyguard, and another legion, 3 legions in the north. They were engaged or looking to find these statues because he was crazy. You know, it is something in the Roman concept that they have to find things like this. You know, like the statue of the legion, the vulture of the legion, the symbol of the legion, and the statue of the Caesar. The statue of the Caesar himself considered to be a god. So his statue is a statue of a god. For them, it was something that they have to do it. They have to do all the war. He was thinking about it all the time. He never gave up. He continued the war for 4 years because of that. He could finish the war in the 2nd year. He didn't want. He was offered by hint by Shimon to negotiate finishing of the war in the end of the second year, and he reacted by increasing his forces in Judea and attacking more, because as far as he was concerned, and as long as he couldn't put his hands on the statues, there is a war forever. So this is why the war took 4 years.
Just a second. So they had this 400-day interlude, during which time they created some sort of Jewish existence here, some sort of sovereign Jewish state.
They leased the lands and let people sow the lands for they have crops, because this was a year after Shnat HaShmitah. So nobody has any storage of wheat to eat if they wouldn't seed the fields. They have to do it. Shimon himself wasn't ready to take control of the country. He was ready to save the Ark of the Covenant. But the Roman left, and all their administration left, and people has to take over the fields and to start to grow the wheat and the barley. Otherwise, there will be a famine. This was the year after Shnat HaShmitah.
So during this time, the Ir Nachoshet, which is, I guess, in southeast Judea, somewhere around there, right?
Between Hebron and Bet Guvrin, about.
Yeah.
We call it the state of Nachoshet, and the capital of the state was Ir Nachoshet.
Yes.
The whole state called the state of Nachoshet, Achuzat Nachoshet.
So during this time, Shimon's second in command was Hillel ben Garis, who lived in the Choshet.
Yes, that's right.
And this was his power base, not Jerusalem.
That's right. But this was administration center of the whole world.
But Hillel ben Garis, at the same time, had a relationship with the Romans, and he was playing the Romans. He was playing it off as like, no, I'm a loyal Roman, right? Playing both sides. How was he able to do this if all the Romans ran away? Who was he speaking to? Was Ir Nachoshet under explicit control by Bar Kokhba or not? What was its status?
When the Roman deserted Judea after Jerusalem fell in 15 of August 132, one little unit stayed, and this was the garrison unit that has the commander of the centurion had a business with Hillel ben Garis. He had a business in En-Gedi, documented the business with the people of En-Gedi in 124. This was documented in the Judean desert. Then he moved from En-Gedi to the area of Hebron, between Hebron and Bet Guvrin, the southwest of the hill of Hebron. And this is the area where Achuzat Nachoshet, the state of Nachoshet, is there. So he was looking for, that's our guest, he was looking for the rich Jewish to do business with them in Hebron area. And he found the richest person in his area was Hillel ben Garis. So he and Hillel, before the war, this was before the war, had business. And when all the Romans ran away to Caesarea, he in his unit, which is a centurion, which is 80 people, that's all. It's a small unit. It's a garrison unit. Stay there. I have my business. Okay, Roman or not Roman, I have a good relation, and I'm staying. And he stayed all the war there. And after the war as well. So he was there, the cover-up for Hillel Ben Garis, because Hillel Ben Garis, as far as everybody knows, was a cooperator with him, with the Roman. Nobody knew, apart from the secret headquarters of the war, that he was the second in command of Shimon. This was a secret. We know that because Shimon wrote it in one letter. In one letter, he said, don't tell them that you are working with me. In other words, don't tell the Romans that you are working with them, that you are also working with me. This was in year 4. For this letter, which we were very lucky to have it, we realize that Hillel has 2 hats.
Yes.
Hat
so
that everybody knew, and hats that nobody knew.
So, okay. Then I guess my next question is this. So they set up a high priest, which was Elazar, who was Shimon's kind of like family priest.
He wasn't a high priest. He was a
schmeck, you know. But they made him like the official priest of the whole effort. Okay.
No, he wasn't. To put it this way, after they started the war started, and Shimon went to Ir Nachoshe from Jerusalem after he liberated Jerusalem after Rosh Hashanah. He went to Ir Nachoshet with the corps of the head of the command of these units that attack Tel Shalem, and with the fiasco in Tel Shalem, he was killed there, and he took his corpse to Ir Nachoshet to bury him in his family burial ground, and they had a meeting there. And in this meeting, they decided to nominate a priest as what they call a Nara poster, the poster boy, for the public, so the public know, eventually, they reveal his name, the public will know that there is a priest in the headquarters, not because it was important, it wasn't important, it was a young priest from a priest family that gave religious services to the family of Hillel Ben Garis. Hillel Ben Garis offer him, because nobody wanted to take the Bnei Tzadok thought that this is not for their dignity to serve as a poster boy. They were interested in the real thing, not in fiction. So they nominated Elazar, as a slogan. We have a priest. Full stop. What happened is that after they saved the Ark of the Covenant. After Sukkot, they took it out. They decided in the second meeting of the headquarters to reveal the name of Shimon Nasi Israel and Elazar Kohen for the public. So the public knows that there is a leader and there is a priest in the leadership. This is why Elazar Kohen were revealed. And we thought, the scholar thought that he is an important person. He was important, but not as we thought. Nothing to do with the high priest. He was just a small poster boy.
He was a figurehead.
Exactly.
And then there were tensions eventually between Shimon and Hillel. Am I correct? That had to do with Elazar. Right. Hillel was probably in his 50s, 60s. He was older at this point.
What?
And was he older? Was he older than Shimon?
Yes, he was over 60.
Over 60. Okay. And so eventually the 400 days of peace end. The Romans, I guess, give up on looking for the statue in the north and in the Galilee.
He didn't give up.
Not in the north.
He didn't give up. He stayed. The legion from Syria stayed there, as well as the legion, the remains of the 10th legion stayed in Caesarea, and the bodyguard of the Caesar will stay there. So eventually, they have a very large force in the north, which I think they continue to look for the things. But he realized after 400 days that he has to do something more. So he ordered the governor of the Arabia provincia, which sat in south of the Dead Sea, to send one unit to go on the highway from Hebron and to try to take over Jerusalem. And they came. We think it was not Centuria, but Coherta, which is something like 500 strong. He sent them to try to take Jerusalem. He didn't know who is standing against him. because he wasn't engaged in war with Shimon for 400 days. No, he was looking for the statues. He wasn't engaged in war. Not in the Galilee was nothing. He's just looking for things. So this unit tried to go on the war on Road 16 today. This is Road 16, Kvish. Next generation.
Oh yeah, thank God.
This is Road 16 today. Kvish Shishim. It goes all in the old way. They try to go to the mountain road, and they were stopped, and there was a war there. And Shimon sent all his reserve from Jerusalem, 2,000 riders on horses. And yes, they defeat this unit. So only then the Caesar realized that there is something more than he thought. And then he changed all his policy of engagement with the Jews. He took the legion number 6, the Pareta from the Galilee, and sent them to, in our opinion, to Beitar to start to build the unit camps inside Judea, and to attack from these camps all the villages around it. And this was the tactics of the new tactics of Caesar, when he realized that it's not enough to send a unit to go and to take Jerusalem. This unit was defeated and completely erased. Some of the equipment that they left in the field are today in the Museum Israel in Jerusalem.
Yes. So the Romans were kind of famous for when they really got going. They were very systematic and had very methodical. So once that happened, was it just, in your opinion, a matter of time for defeat? Was there anything that Bar Kokhba, the Jews could have done to avoid being defeated? Was there? What was the strategy?
The strategy was to put camps inside the heart of Judea.
No, the strategy of the Jews.
The Jews tried to avoid engaging with them, in clashing with them, and to save whatever they can, and to save the Ark of the Covenant first of all, to look after it, and then to live in a normal life. And the Roman they didn't know what to do, because they couldn't find them. This was a guerrilla war. They couldn't have fingers on them. So they can't defeat them. They can't defeat them. And once or twice the Jews defeated the Romans, and here and there the Roman defeated in a local clashes the units of Shimon. But it wasn't a big war. It wasn't a big battle. It was all the time, this attack here and attack there. In this attack, in this war of attrition, I would say, the upper hand was the Shimon, not the Roman. The Roman didn't know what to do. Pashut didn't know what to do. How to defeat what they consider to be rebels.
But usually, what the Romans would do in these cases would be to take the civilian population and exile them, enslave them, whatever, get rid of them.
They didn't exile them, but they destroyed their villages. And what happened? The tactics was very simple. Then, as well as in 48 war with the Israelis against the Palestinians, once the unit come to a village, the villagers go to the mountains, leave the place, go to the mountain. The unit go destroy here and destroy there, destroy the synagogue, burn the synagogue. We have documentation of burning the synagogue here and there and that. And they left and couldn't stay there. So the villagers came back and built their things. We have this process again and again and again and again. You can't see they didn't defeat Shimon as a working. In fact, at the end, toward the end of year 4, Shimon organized all his army, all his available army, apart from the army in Ir Nachoshet and in Beitar. He organized them in Jerusalem and had a plan to attack the Roman camps near Beitar, the main headquarters of the Roman governor near Beitar. We have full documentation of what to do and how he mobilized everything, and now send this supply and do this and that. About 100 documents about it, about this battle. He was ready to put them the punch to finish them there. Not all the Roman army, but the headquarters, like he did in Jerusalem in the beginning of the war. And what happened is that for internal reason, nothing to do with the Roman, in our opinion, the people from Engedi who had competition with Shimon on a commercial interest. Commercial, I'm not going into it at the moment. Commercial interest of export the products to the Nabatean in the south of the Dead Sea, and they clash with the activity of Shimon, and they thought that Shimon is going to attack them in Engedi, like he threatened them in his letters to Engedi, that he will burn their houses because they rebel against him. They rebelled against him. They didn't did what he ordered them to do. So they organized a plot to kill him. And what they did, the commander of Engedi, by the name of Ben Baraya, Yonatan Ben Baraya, and his protege, the lady called Babata Bat Shimon, who was the richest lady in the area, and we know about her because we have her archive that was found in the caves by Yadin. They organized, according to our opinion, they organized to attack and to kill, the plot to kill Shimon, to solve the competition, the commercial competition between them and Shimon regime. And they used the son of Babata Bat Shimon, who was the personal servant of Shimon from the beginning of the war, from before the war, a young boy. But he was the son of the lady of Engedi, the lady who controlled Engedi. They order him, or they mobilize him to put a snake, in our opinion, a snake from Engedi, a special type of snake that doesn't move. Nachash Engedi, Tzef Engedi.
Saraf Engedi.
Saraf Engedi. He doesn't move. It's a stable unless you touch him. It's not like a Tzefa Ragil, which move all the time. You put him. I don't know if you came across these snakes in Israel. It's like a rattlesnake. It moves all the time. Very, very.
Viper, yes.
Viper. This Tzefa Engedi, Saraf Engedi doesn't move. It's a black. He stand there. So he put, and this is only. They can only get it in Engedi, in Jericho, in the Dead Sea area, and they gave him the snake. And he put the snake the night before Shimon. He knew that Shimon is about to leave Beitar to go to Jerusalem and to mobilize his people his forces against the Roman garrison in things. So the same night he prepared the snakes by the trolley of Shimon, and then Shimon went to organize his things and the trolley. The snake bite him, and we have about 20 documents about all these events. Send me the medicine, he wrote to Hillel Ben Garis. And Hillel sent him the medicine, didn't help because he died by then. So we have lots of information about what happened eventually. It had nothing to do with the Roman. It's his internal problem. There's a sidelines where the wise people of Beitar eventually thought that they were part of this plot. They may be a part of the plot, but they didn't do anything. They didn't initiate the plot, and they didn't do the plot. We think that Yoshua bin Nun, the boy, mobilized them in Beitar in order that they help him to save him after Shimon is dead, because his bodyguard will probably go and kill him. So it's nothing to do with it. They admitted in the Talmud that they killed Shimon, and the whole story killed him, and then when he died, they know that he is not a Mashiach, etc. This has nothing to do with the very fact that there was a plot to kill Shimon. It wasn't them. They thought it's them. Okay, that's fine.
So So Shimon dies and the rebellion collapses?
He died because of the bite of the snake that was planted in his trolley.
But after his death?
After his death, in our opinion, the next morning, the wise people, the leaders, the Perushite leaders, Chachamei Beitar, decided to open the gate to the Roman to enter the town because they believed that they were saved, their life and the people were saved, like a village before them that opened the gate in the general Milchemet HaChurban 60 years before. And in the time
the Great
of
Revolt.
And their village was safe because they opened the gates to the Roman, and the Romans saved them. They thought that they were Roman will save them and not kill them. But this what happened in the war before them. It was the Roman move, and somebody opened the gate and said, "Okay, fine." There was 4 years or 3 years of siege. The Roman was completely exhausted. They didn't have any patience to anybody. So they walked in. They didn't attack the place. Yosishkin excavated the place and said the Beitar wasn't occupied by force. Not at all. It's like the Western Negev. They didn't use their weapon. All the weapon was there. He said he excavated the pieces that he excavated. He said Beitar wasn't fighting in the last time. The Roman apparently walked inside. They walked inside because they opened the gate for them. And when they opened the gate, the Roman came and started to kill them because this is what the Roman do. After 3 years of siege and rebellion, they killed everybody. And they wanted to catch. And eventually, the head of the Roman, Julius Severus, wanted to see the corpse of Shimon. Was it there? So he asked if anybody could bring the corpse. So some, according to the story, according to the Talmud, one Samarites, Shomroni, brought the corpse without the head, or brought the head without the corpse. He said, to bring everything. He said he brought the corpse and the head. It was covered with the shroud, with the, what's it called in Hebrew?
Tashrichim.
לבנים,
תשריחים.
בד לבן כזה, white linen. So he said, take it over. I want to see because the Caesar who was in Roma, by the way, ordered him that he has to be absolutely sure that Shimon is not alive because he wanted him alive. He didn't want him dead. He wanted to interrogate him. What happened to the statue? That was his interest. He wants the head of the Roman garrison in Judea to catch him on and to bring him to investigation, to interrogate him, and to get out of him what happened to the statue. So he didn't want him dead. He wanted him alive. But he was dead because the boy put it in the snake and killed him. So he said, are you sure? Make sure 100% that he's dead. This is Shimon. So he took all the shroud around him and opened it. It's all in the Talmud, all this story. By the way, the story is a Roman source, not from a Jewish source, because all the Jews were dead by then. So they couldn't testify about it. It was probably Samaritans who tested the whole story and told the Jews what happened in Beitar itself. There wasn't any Jewish life. They killed them all.
What about Jerusalem? Jerusalem they took after Beitar?
After Beitar. Once they finished, they completely killed everybody in Beitar. They were free. Free hands, moved 5 legions and lots of other units, supporting units to Jerusalem and lay siege. There's also in the Talmud the story that Adrianus nearly been killed there because he thought it's nothing. So he went to the wall and they started to shoot at him. That's all in the Talmud, there's the story. Well, this is the sources that we have. We don't have any other sources what happened in Jerusalem. Gichon thinks that they lay siege up to 50 days. Nobody knows how many days, but up to 50 days. And then it happened that somebody, a snitch, what they call gasus in Arabic, told them that there is a tunnel where the Jerusalem got supply from outside. They used this tunnel to enter Jerusalem in Shabbat.
He was loyal. So what happened after the war? What was the situation after the war?
In the third year, definitely in the fourth year after the defeat, after the fall of Beitar Rebbe, they send shayarot, caravans of families from Ir Nachoshet and other villages in Achuzat Nachoshet, more orderly, with the army protection, to cross into Moab, into Divon. And eventually Hillel died in the 10th year of the war. It means 6 years after the war was finished, he was still active in Ir Nachoshet. The last let of fields was in the year 10, Shnat Yud, Shana Eser, year 10, it's 142. And then he died, was buried. We have the burial documents of him. And a year after that, his son, Matan, who was nominated after Shimon dead as the leader of the army, did the funeral ceremony year after the burial. And then everybody from Ir Nachoshet left, the last people left Ir Nachoshet and moved to Divon. And I'll tell you this we know. All up to here we know. From here onward, I'll tell you what we think. They didn't stay in Divon. They all came to Divon with lots of gold, because there were so much gold that they left behind them. And this is why the Palestinians could find the gold in the cave. As they entered the cave, there was still bars of gold.
This was all the gold of Jerusalem? Where did all this gold come from?
From the time they liberate Jerusalem and afterwards, they empty all the treasures of the temples that were under the Temple Mount, as well as the Ark of the Covenant and other things. And we have about 25 items, utensils that were saved there. It's right, כלי מהבית השני, כלי מהבית הראשון, זה דברים פנטסטיים. אני ראיתי, I showed it in the lectures, all these utensils. You can go back and look at them.
So they went to Divon, which is in modern-day Jordan, in Moab.
Yes, Moab. And then, in my opinion, they didn't stay in Moab because they fear from the Roman. And although the Roman were not active in Moab, also for the war, they refrained from going into Moab for their own reason. We speculate on that, or they didn't. And they left Moab. In our opinion, they went to the Hijaz of Saudi Arabia, northwest corner of Saudi Arabia, where and they settled there and established these 5 Jewish flourish towns in Saudi Arabia, the Jews towns in Hijaz, up to the time of Muhammad.
Muslim sources say that the towns of Arabia were established by the Jews, and so it's very, very possible.
We have full documentation, even in the Quran, about it.
Yes, but they they evacuated from the land of Israel because they were afraid of Roman reprisals. Even this far after the war, even 6 years after the war, they thought the Romans would eventually realize.
The people who left Judea were the people who were involved in the war. As I said, the war wasn't a war. It wasn't a popular war. It was a war by 20, 25 villages.
Amazing.
Because they didn't trust anybody. The whole army was secret. Nobody knew. The population didn't know who is the army. If it wasn't for the coin of Shimon and Elazar, that they have the name on the coin, they didn't even know who is the leader. It was all completely secret, exactly like the Hamas in Gaza. They kept complete secrecy. So, and this was part of their success. Now, what happened is this. All the people, the residents of Achuzat Nachoshet, especially Ir Nachoshet, left Judea, because they were involved directly with the war. They fear of the Roman will discover that they cooperate with Shimon, while Shimon was dead. Some of the people in Judea left to the Galilee, and we know that. They left to the Galilee. And we know that because, for instance, the artisans who used to produce a special oil lamps with beautiful Jewish symbols on them during the war, they started to produce them near Tzipori, in Shichin, in a place called Shichin in the Galilee. This was the oil lamps from the Judea. They started to produce them, so they moved from Judea to Tzipori, and some of this oil. This is a very clear sign that they came there, and they started to produce them. And we have about 10 places in the Lower Galilee where these oil lamps were found. Not many huge quantities, but enough. So some of them went to the Galilee. Many of them stayed in Judea, in the south of Judea, in Samoa, in Yatta, in Susia, in many Kfar Haziz, in many places they continue to live.
So there are questions I have on this as well. So first of all, I've heard speculation that many of the Arabs in that area are actually Jews.
They are.
The Arabs of Yatta, the Arabs of Dura.
They're Jewish.
Yes. And they converted not so long ago, and they stayed secretly Jews for a very long time. Do you think that?
No, it's not a question of staying Jews. They continue, they carry on the minhagim, the traditions, like putting an oil lamp on Shabbat, for instance. They have mezuzot. They didn't know what it is. They didn't know what it belongs to. This is what their grandmother did, so the daughter did. And the daughter of the daughter, they continue until nowadays. I have a pot here in my house, which I bought from big one for oil, with a candelabra on it.
This is from, and so you think that these guys, these Arabs of Dura that are actually Jewish, that they might have come from
Jewish. They are not Jewish, because Judaism is not about who is your parents. The Judaism is about your faith.
Oh, I'm sorry, but Judaism is about who your parents are.
It's not a race. Jewish is not a race. Everybody could become a Jew.
That's true.
That's true.
But that's true. But according to the Torah, if your mother is Jewish, even if you're of some other religion, you're still Jewish.
If your mother is Jewish, or you converted into Judaism.
Yes. So, in other words, are these guys, these Arabs who are Jewish, are they the descendants of the refugees from Achuzat Nechoshet, do you think?
No, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you an example. A very, very clear example. There is a place, Hamra, Khirbet Hamra, near Susia. Yes? Until today. Today is not occupied, but it was excavated by an archaeologist. And this is one of the 10 families that started Susia in the year 3 of the war. We have documentation they built the synagogue, and we have the synagogue, etc. Now there is a family of Hamra still living there. Not in Susia, but in Yatta. And they know that they are Jewish origin. They told us. Arab called them Jews, but they are Muslim. They're even more Muslims than the Muslims, you know. They know that the origin is Jewish. So what? That doesn't make them Jewish.
But they have the same family name as the people Hamra. Hamra. Oh, but Hamra just means red. in Arabic.
This is the name
Khamra is
from the
red.
time. This is the name from the time of the war of 2,000 years. They carry on the same family, but they changed their religious. So first of all, they converted probably to Christianity and then eventually to Muslims, but they continue to live as a Khamra family, as a Khamra tribe.
So
they doesn't make them Jews.
Well, according to Judaism, it does.
They have a Jewish origin, but they are not Jewish.
No, if there's a matrilineal line and it's not broken, they're Jewish. But no,
it's a question of definition. What is
okay? Jewish? The Jewish definition is they're Jews. Maybe the Buddhist definition or the Muslim definition.
There's somebody who lives in one of the settlements in the south, not far away from you. I don't remember his name. That his mission in life is to convince them that they're Jews and they should come from Muslim to Jews. Wow. He is going to tell them, talk to them. You're Jews. They laugh at him.
I have a friend.
They know that they were Jewish, but they are not Jewish now.
I have a friend who lives in Kokhba, and he says that after 1967, when the land there was liberated, there were Arab families from Tuku, which is old Kokhba, who came to the Israelis, and they said we're actually Jewish.
They try to make good for themselves. Of course, it's natural.
They were told to go away. We're not interested in this.
Because nobody listen.
Because there's no conversion pathway for these people. I know several.
The research of these tribes of this family started by Ben Tzvi before the state of Israel.
Yep.
And he documented all of them. And there is no question about their origin. But there is also not a question about the reality. The reality is that there are Muslims for hundreds of years already.
Okay, this reality can change. I know. No, let me say that. This is not folks of the...
Listen, the people who cooperate with him, they said that we are Jewish. They said to us, we are Jewish. So I said, go and convert yourself. There's a rabbi in Beersheba. He lives in Beersheba, the gentleman. The Rabbi Dari, the brother of Aryeh Dari. He was the chief rabbi of Beersheba until he died recently. Go to him and convert yourself. So he said, I went. And I started. I couldn't stand. I couldn't continue. They're not patient. But he considered himself Jewish. But I said, they are not Jewish because everywhere you go, you're an Israeli. He has the Teudat Zehut. He got it because he wants to cooperate with the Shirotei HaBitachon. They gave him Teudat Zehut Kchula and all his family. But I said, when you come across, every time you have been asked, they will not consider you Jewish until you converted properly by the rabbis. Otherwise, you're not Jewish. You're Israeli. You're a supporter of Israel. You may be, you're Hashem. Maybe you believe in God. Everything is fine, but you are not Jewish. Because to be Jewish is a very clear definition. You have to be born to a Jewish mother. I'm talking about the Rabbanites, and not the Beta Israel, the Ethiopian Jews. That's a different story altogether. By the way, they are the last branch of Bnei Tzadok, if you are interested. But this is another story. I'm talking about the Rabbanites. Rabbanites, as far as the rabbis is concerned, the Talmud, Torah Shebaal Peh, either you've been born to a Jewish mother, or you've been converted. There are only the two ways to become Jewish. Otherwise, you're not Jewish, as far as they're concerned.
I want to ask you something. After the Bar Kokhba rebellion, just like before the Bar Kokhba rebellion, there was constant partisan warfare, as you explained, and this is Bar Kokhba's background. Was there ongoing guerrilla war against the Romans afterwards on a small scale? Do you think?
Not as far as we know, until the revolt. There was another revolt 100 years later. They tried. There was also, like the fire, when they put the fire, they're still burning little things, and they come from time to time. There is the time of, I forgot the Caesar, there are 2 or 3 trial to have to rebel against the Roman, but not in an organized way. It was local and was crushed. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all. They tried. They were. You see, they were very much try to become free, but not in an organized way. The last organized war, not because political interest, not because territorialism, but because of the Ark of the Covenant was the Bar Kokhba war.
Okay.
This is why we don't call it rebellion, because it wasn't rebellion of the people. It was a war by a unit, very secret, dedicated people that know each other by personally, and they were completely secret inside and outside. This is why they were survived for such a long time and fighting and fighting and fighting.
My final question, I guess, is there is some speculation that, it's not speculation, Rabbi Akiva is called the arms bearer of Bar Kokhba in the Gemara.
That's the Rambam. That's the Rambam.
No. The Rambam is I believe in the Gemara it says he was Nosek Elav.
He was the Nosek Elav Shel Shimon, Shel Bar Kokhba. Yeah. That's what Rambam said.
And then there's some speculation that the students of Rabbi Akiva who died, the 24,000 students who died because they were participating in this rebellion. But you're saying that what happened was that because of the edicts of Hadrian against Judaism, which were a reaction to the statues, this is why they were killed, because they continued to practice Judaism, not because they were partisans of Bar Kokhba. Is that the theory?
You see, there is a story. Sometimes it's very difficult to synchronize between what happened, what this document in the Talmud, and the real event that happened. There was an event that we know in our documentation. In year 4, they tried to take over probably the water spring of Beitar, which was outside the city wall. It was guarded by 2 units of the Roman who set an ambush because they knew that the Jews will try to get it, because there was shchuna, there wasn't enough rain, and they didn't have water inside Beitar, so they anticipated that the Jews will try to attack them and to take over the spring. In this unfortunate event, they lost 1,056 dead and few thousand wounded. And they mobilized all the people who knew how to treat wounded people. That's documented. Because this was a day that Shimon was completely almost gave up. And he said to Hillel ben Garis, take my wife and take the daughter and put the gold and send them to Divon. He wanted to evacuate them from Judea because he was in such a desperate situation. People left the army. So if you talk about this event of 20 students of Rabbi Akiva, which is the story of Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva wasn't involved at all with the war, it may be a echo of such an event. There was an event like this, but not 20,000, but over 1,000 in one. This was the worst day war documented in the war, that he lost almost 2,000 with the wounded, 2,000 or 3,000 people in the same day in Beitar. It was outside the wall of Beitar, but all this soldiers came from Beitar and tried to take over, in my opinion, the spring. We don't know. We know that they were dead and many, many wounded. They didn't say we went to take the spring, but it's our opinion, because before that, when he came to Beitar, and the people of Beitar that invited him to come to Beitar, he didn't come to Beitar because he was interested. He was invited to come and to save Beitar because the Roman put siege of water on Beitar, not physical siege. They denied Beitar the water because the water was outside the city wall. So he ordered to save every drop in Beitar, including the water in the mikvaot, including the water in the mikvaot, to save it. because they have such a shortage of water in Beitar. This was documented in our archive. In other words, there was a problem, real problem of water in Beitar, because the Roman stop the availability of the water from the spring to be used by the people in Beitar. This is why they knew that they will react. They knew they will try to take the They put an ambush, and it was a disaster day. But this is the closest documented events that could somehow echo the story of Rabbi Akiva and his 20,000 students. But as such, it has nothing to do with war. Rabbi Akiva wasn't at all involved in the war.
According to the archive, it does not appear.
Belonged to the other party, to the Perushite. And this is Bnei Tzadok. Bnei Tzadok and the Perushite had an argument since the time of the Chasmonites, since Yehuda Maccabi.
Did Bar Kokhba's family, did his children survive?
We don't know. I suppose some Chazal, his wife, first of all, he evacuated his first wife and some of the children, the young Elazar and Chita, the two young children. The other children were in the army. Balbat was killed in year 3. Tzin, the boy, is an officer in the army. We don't know when he was killed. Maybe he was saved, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we don't know what happened after they left we don't know after whoever survived left to Moab, to Divon, and from Divon to the Hijaz, and eventually after Muhammad, if you want, to the north of Yemen and cross the Red Sea into Eritrea and Ethiopia, if you like. I'll give you the end of it.
Perhaps. Okay, wonderful. Dr.
Eshel. Beta Israel, this is our thing. They are the survivor of the Bnei Tzadok that came with this army of Shimon, and this is why Beta Israel, the beliefs and the version of the Israel,
Judaism, yeah.
Israeli. It's not Judaism because they are not Jewish. They are Israelis, and they said Bnei Tzadok and the Tzdukim. Perusites are completely different line. The Perusites are today the Rabbanites. This is the Yadut HaRabbanit, the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Bnei Tzadok is Torah Shebechtav. They didn't accept Torah Sheba'al Peh. And the people of Beta Israel in Ethiopia, they carry on the Torah Shebechtav, לא בעל פה. הם לא מכירים בתלמוד, הם לא מכירים את התלמוד. הם לא מכירים את המדרשים. זה לא קיים מבחינתם, וגם היום זה לא קיים מבחינתם, חוץ מאלה שהפכו להיות משתפי פעולה עם הרבנות. אבל יש מאבק פנימי מאוד קשה בתוך בני ישראל, כי הבסיס שלהם...
Sorry. In English, because our audience will not understand any of this because you're speaking Hebrew.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we shall talk about it in different.
We definitely should.
Angle of it. I'm working with the Ethiopian Jews about some of them about this problem, because their religious is different from our religious. They have the religion of Torah Shebechtav, but we have the religion of Torah Sheba'al Peh. We take the Talmud and the Mishnah and the Gemara. They don't. They don't have it and they don't respect it. They respect it as a Jewish documentation, but they don't live according to it. They don't use mikvaot like us. They only use water, moving water. Mayim Chayim. All their villages are by ravines and rivers in Ethiopia. They said to the people when they came to Israel in the 90s, go to the sea and don't go to the mikveh, because the mikveh is dirty. This is how they look at it. There are a million things. There are some very interesting material on it. There are two different branches of the Israeli way of belief. And we belong to the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is today the Rabbanut, the Chachamim, after the wise men, and they belong to Bnei Tzadok, the priest of the temple, who believes only in Torah Shebechtav. This is the Beit Israel, as well as the what's it called?
Karaites.
Correct. They are not 100% because the worst time moved from the time that since they left the general public. But we discovered, I'm telling you, we discovered all this when they found and they deciphered the library of the Bnei Tzadok in Qumran. And then we saw suddenly that the Bnei Israel, they have documents from there. Nobody knew about this, the Sifriya. So they have it from there. They have it. They have documentation from the Sifriya, Sefer HaYovlim, the Old Sfarim, the Book of Yovlim. So it's very interesting. This is not our main business, but I'm in contact with some of their people and think about it. It's very interesting. The point.
God willing, we'll discuss this perhaps on another follow-on session. Let's see what the viewers have to say, what their questions are. Dr. Eshel, thank you very much. I've taken 2.5 hours of your time.
If you want more information, just come back.